This video will be about complex numbers. Now, complex numbers, they're a bit interesting because we also consider them imaginary numbers. And so, or else they're not real. Now, we might think that complex numbers will never be used or they'll never be relevant, but actually they're used fairly frequently in physics, primarily when you're looking at circuits. So we're just going to cover them out of a context here, but when you take physics, you will probably see complex numbers. So first off, what a complex number is we denote it as I. Okay, I for imaginary. Now, it is defined as the square root of -1. Now, we can't do anything more than that because there's no number multiplied by itself that makes -1. So you have -1 times -1 equals 1, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So that nothing's going to happen there. Okay, so we don't know what the square root of -1 is, so we have defined it as I. That's just a fact. It's what mathematicians have said is true, and that's what we're saying. It's notation. Okay, now we're going to go through briefly what happens if we have an exponent. So we have I to the 0. That is going to be equal to anything raised to the 0 power is 1. Now, I to the first, I don't want to get too simple here, but I to the first is just I. Okay, now hang with me here for a second. If we go to I squared, okay, so we said that I, so that's I times I, we have the square root of -1 times the square root of -1, that's going to equal -1. Okay, and square root of -1 times square root of -1, that is going to give us -1. Okay, it's kind of a unique case. We don't necessarily think of that. Okay, now if we go to I cubed, okay, it's a bit fuzzy. We'll see if we can get that back into focus. I cubed is I squared times I to the first. Notice your exponent properties, same base, multiply together, you add the exponents. Okay, so we said I squared is -1 times I, so that equals -I. Okay, so imaginary numbers, complex numbers, will only come up when you have this situation going on. If you have a negative inside a square root, you have a complex number.